My research question is, how does climate change affect peace throughout environments? When talking about climate change, people seem to mostly focus on what it does to the animals in the ocean. And while that is really important, very few people know how climate change affects peace throughout other environments. While this has little to no effect on us right now, in the United States, if climate change goes on the way it is, it could eventually. And so what I mean by climate change's effect on peace is that climate change affects the environment, which in turn directly affects the people who rely on the surrounding natural environment, such as the people colored in red on this map. These environmental issues cause tension between people competing for environmental resources. I based my research question off of source C, Margaret Thatcher's speech to the United Nations, and source G, Bob Dylan's song Blowing in the Wind. I took the idea of climate change issues from Margaret Thatcher's speech and the ideas of peace from Bob Dylan's song to lead me to my research question about climate change's effect on peace throughout environments. So one group's peace that is directly affected by these environmental issues would be anyone who has to solely rely on natural environment around them for resources, which would be 3 in 4 people living in poverty, according to this picture. An article written by Alexandra Brzezowski, a woman who specializes in EU policy, states that available proof suggests that climate change has played a role in triggering conflict through its effect on livelihood, security, and resource availability. When people rely greatly on the availability of resources around them, and those resources start to disappear, that's when conflict starts, due to the fact that some people have more of the resources that others need, and conflict begins when one person has a surplus of what others really need. Another group's peace largely affected by the environmental issues is farmers. Going back to what I said before about people who rely on the natural environment for resources being greatly affected also applies to the people who are growing and cultivating these natural resources. An article written by the Sierra Club, an organization that protects wild places and promotes responsible use of the Earth's ecosystem, states that farmers once welcomed Arab herders on their home soil, but the hospitality ended when the rain stopped. With water scarce, farmers fenced their lands and the herders became hostile. Similar water conflicts loom in hotspots worldwide, including the arid Middle East. Just as before, when resources started to disappear, conflict begins. Because when the farmers do not have any predictions on when things will grow, such as the tropical areas and their unpredictable farming conditions on this picture, they begin to want to protect what they do have. What they do have is also what the herders need, and when people have what others need, conflict begins. One solution to the issue of climate change challenging peace would be to create a world objective, such as reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and creating a strict plan that each country must follow. By creating an objective, we would hopefully be creating more peace by reducing the effect climate change has on natural resources. The solution would best work if all major contributors to the amount of greenhouse gases in the environment participated, but it is unrealistic to think that all of these countries would due to the amount of money and time it would take. A second and more realistic solution would be for larger countries to provide aid to smaller neighboring countries that are struggling with the effects of climate change. By doing this, they would be hopefully reducing conflict by helping provide, or at least better ration, the natural resources that these countries have, and possibly helping themselves by creating a better relationship with these countries and possibly protecting themselves from the potential of conflict spreading to their country. While this solution may be more realistic, it still has a few issues, such as the fact that not all countries get along with their neighboring countries, and not every country has the money to provide the goods and the aid. That's my recommendation.
Okay, a couple questions for you, Riley. The first one is, how did you select the strategies you used to gather information or conduct research, and do you think they were effective?
Well, I started just researching the relationship between peace and the environment, And then once I found the argument, I did more specific research on those topics, and I feel it was pretty effective.
Okay, and then your second question is, if you had more time, what additional research would you conduct related to the issue?
I think I would find more research on how it could affect larger countries in the future, because I had found a little bit about it, and I would like to find if there's actual research that could be proven that it'll affect larger countries.